While Houthi missiles disrupt global shipping and tensions simmer across the Middle East, one city seems not just to be surviving, but thriving spectacularly. That city is Dubai. Not far from Al Dhafra Air Base, where U.S. troops are stationed to help maintain regional stability, a different kind of explosion is happening. In 2025, forecasts predict Dubai will once again lead the world in attracting migrating millionaires. Ultra-luxury real estate projects worth tens of millions of dollars sell out in minutes. A massive wave of capital is flooding in, seeking a safe harbor amidst the turmoil. But at this very moment, in private WhatsApp and Telegram groups with names like Dubai Exit Support Group, thousands of professionals, the teachers, engineers, and nurses who run this glittering machine are all asking the same question: how do we get out? The Dubai dream, built on a promise of a better income tax-free life, is fracturing. A silent exodus is underway. But this isn't an exodus of the unsuccessful. It's an exodus of the very middle class that helped build the city's boom. So, what is really happening behind the rosy picture? How can a city seen as a fortress of stability and a key Western partner in a volatile region be losing the core people who make it work? This is the story of Dubai's paradox, a city that's getting richer but becoming too expensive for the very people who built it. There is always an unspoken deal for anyone who moved to Dubai. You come here, you work hard, you contribute your skills. In return, you get a high quality of life, safety, and most importantly, you pay no personal income tax. For years, this financial equation made perfect sense. The money saved on taxes would offset the higher cost of living. It was a simple, effective formula. But in just the last few years, that formula has completely collapsed. The first and most painful factor is the housing crisis. Rents have soared to absurd levels. Imagine you're a middle-class family living in a two-bedroom apartment in Jumeirah Village Circle, JVC, once considered an affordable area. In 2022, you paid around 75,000 dirhams a year. By 2024, your landlord quoted a new rent of 95,000 dirhams. And by the time your contract is up for renewal in 2026, that figure could jump to 110,000 dirhams. Your salary might have increased slightly, or not at all, but your rent has gone up by nearly 50%. This isn't an isolated case. In popular middle-class areas like Dubai Marina or Business Bay, the rent for a two-bedroom apartment can easily exceed 140,000 to 200,000 dirhams a year. Many families face a brutal choice: either spend a huge portion of their income on rent or downgrade their lives by moving to a smaller, more distant apartment and losing hours every day stuck in traffic. But the burden doesn't stop at rent. The second, and perhaps deciding factor for many families, is school fees. Dubai prides itself on a diverse system of private international schools, but that quality comes at a staggering price. The average tuition for one child in an international primary school can be around 60,000 dirhams per year. It can even reach 100,000 dirhams. Have two children? That's 120,000 dirhams. For a family with a monthly income of 30,000 to 40,000 dirhams, school fees alone can consume 25% to 35% of their total earnings, before rent, utilities, food, and transport. Utility bills, especially for electricity and air conditioning (DUA), can easily reach 800 to 1,500 dirhams a month in the summer. A basic internet and mobile phone package cost around 500 to 600 dirhams. A simple meal at a mid-range restaurant for a family of four can cost 300 dirhams. Even the monthly grocery bill easily surpasses 4,000 dirhams. When you add it all up, the picture becomes painfully clear. Imagine a middle-class, dual-income family, say an engineer and a teacher, earning a combined 45,000 dirhams a month. After subtracting 12,000 for rent, 10,000 for two children's school fees, 1,500 for utilities, 4,000 for food, and 2,500 for other expenses, they are left with about 15,000 dirhams. That might sound like a lot, but it doesn't include retirement savings, trips home to see family, or any unexpected costs. The tax-free advantage has been completely neutralized. This is the moment when the phrase "the math stops working" becomes a reality. The dream of accumulating wealth and building a secure future in Dubai is vanishing, replaced by a month-to-month struggle just to maintain a standard of living. For the middle class, Dubai is no longer an opportunity. It has become a burden. Why did this once attractive financial equation fall apart so quickly? The answer isn't a crisis. On the contrary, it stems from Dubai's own success and a deliberate strategic shift. The city is undergoing what analysts call a recalibration, transforming itself from a global hub for middle-class professionals into an exclusive playground for the mega-rich. This shift is fueled by a wave of migration of ultra-high net worth individuals, UHNWIs. In the wake of the pandemic and amidst global geopolitical instability, Dubai emerged as a safe, tax-friendly haven. The UAE government seized this opportunity, rolling out policies specifically designed to attract this elite class. The most prominent of these is the Golden Visa policy. This program grants long-term residency to investors and talents, with one of the most popular paths being a minimum investment of 2 million dirhams, about $545,000 in real estate. This policy created a frenzy in the housing market, attracting foreign investors seeking stability. Billions of dollars from around the world poured into Dubai real estate, not just to find a place to live, but to buy a safe residency permit and a profitable investment channel. The consequence was a distorted market. Developers shifted their focus to ultra-luxury projects. Demand from global millionaires sent high-end property prices skyrocketing. But the effect trickled down, hitting the mid-range market hard. As prices in the luxury segment rose, it pulled the price of everything else up with it. Apartments once meant for middle-class families suddenly became speculative assets in the eyes of international investors. This is known as the Monaco Effect. Like the tiny principality on the Mediterranean, Dubai is increasingly optimized for people who don't need a monthly paycheck. The city is becoming a luxury product, more a place to park wealth than a place for ordinary people to work and build a career. It raises the bitter question: what happens when a city starts building homes for people who don't actually need to live there? This massive influx of capital also creates localized inflation. With deep pockets, the super-rich don't hesitate to pay for premium services, from fine dining to the most expensive schools. This establishes a new cost baseline, and the middle class, with their stagnating wages, simply can't keep up. They are being crowded out of the very city they serve. Although the overall population is still growing due to new arrivals, a replacement is occurring. The long-term middle class is being pushed out, making way for a new, wealthier stream of people. Behind the statistics are real human stories of families facing painful choices. Take the example of the Khan family, who have lived in Dubai for over a decade. He's an architect, she's a marketing professional. They arrived with little more than a big dream. The first few years were perfect. Good jobs, a stable income, they welcomed 2 children and enjoyed a comfortable, safe life. They lived in a spacious 3-bedroom apartment in the Greens, a lush, friendly community. They were proud to call Dubai home. But then the financial equation began to crack. The first rent increase notice came as a shock. From 120,000 dirhams, the landlord demanded 150,000. They bit the bullet and accepted, cutting back on vacations. But a year later, the number was 180,000 dirhams. At the same time, their children's school announced a 10% tuition hike. Suddenly, more than half their monthly income was going just to rent and school fees. Their life began to shrink. Weekend dinners out were replaced by meals at home. Plans to buy a new car were scrapped. Flights to visit family back home had to be reconsidered, cut from twice a year to just once. The sense of financial comfort evaporated, replaced by constant anxiety every time a bill was due. They started looking at other options. Move to a smaller apartment? But with 2 growing children, a cramped living space would affect the whole family. Move to a cheaper, more distant area? That would mean an extra 2 to 3 hours on the road every day. Precious time they could have been spending with their kids. The hardest conversation finally took place. What are we doing here? We're working ourselves to the bone just to pay rent and school fees. We're not saving anything anymore. Who are we building a future for? The harsh truth was that they were making their landlord and the education corporations richer, while their own future grew more precarious. The feeling of being pushed out of your own home was very real. They no longer felt they belonged, despite dedicating their best years to the city's growth. The husband would look at the skyscrapers he helped design and feel a bitter sense of alienation. Finally, after many sleepless nights, they made the decision. They would leave Dubai. Where to? Maybe Canada, Australia, or back to their home country, places with a clearer path to long-term stability and quality public education, even if it meant paying higher taxes. The Khan family's story is not unique. It's repeated in thousands of other middle-class households across Dubai. They believe in the Dubai promise. They work hard, But now they realize that in the city's new economic model, they are just replaceable temporary residents. Their departure is a quiet but immense loss, leaving a void that a revolving door of millionaires can hardly fill. The cost of living crisis is just a symptom. The root of this silent exodus lies deeper, in a fundamental characteristic of Dubai society: structural transience. Whether you've lived in Dubai for 5, 10, or 20 years, you're always an expat, a foreigner. The heart of the issue is the visa system. For the vast majority of the nearly 90% foreign population, their right to reside is tied directly to their job. Lose your job, and you have a short window to find a new one. If you don't, you and your family must leave the country. This insecurity hangs over everyone's head, creating a constant sense of precariousness. The path to UAE citizenship is virtually non-existent for the average person. Naturalization has extremely strict requirements, and even recent relaxations are aimed at a tiny elite, not a clear pathway for the middle class. This lack of a path to long-term stability creates a guest in a luxury hotel mentality. People come to work, make money, and then leave. When times are good, this model works well. But when hardship hits, people have no reason to stay and fight for their home, because fundamentally, it was never really their home. They simply check out and find another hotel. This transience is also reflected in the fact that you cannot fully own land in many areas, and there is no social safety net to protect you in times of crisis. Compared to Western countries like Canada or Australia, where immigrants have a clear path to citizenship and access to public benefits, the difference is stark. When the middle class feels that the math stops working, they have no reason to stay and endure. The transience in the social structure is the catalyst that turns economic difficulties into a definitive decision to leave. They are not abandoning a homeland, they are simply ending a long-term employment contract. And this is the critical flaw in Dubai's miraculous development model. For decades, Dubai successfully cultivated an image as an oasis of safety, immune to the world's problems. The unwritten promise was, no matter where conflict happened, they will stop at the UAE's borders. Recently, however, cracks have begun to appear, shaking the faith in that perfection. The most shocking event was the historic flood in April 2024. A record 75 years' worth of rain fell in a single day, turning highways into rivers and paralyzing the world's busiest international airport. The flood exposed an uncomfortable truth: the infrastructure of a megacity built in the desert has its limits, despite rapid recovery efforts. The images of supercars floating in floodwaters became a symbol of the fragility behind the solid exterior. At the same time, regional geopolitical instability has begun to creep across the UAE's safe borders. Drone and missile attacks, though rare and quickly contained, have shattered the bubble of absolute security. This has led some foreigners to start questioning the long-term safety of their families. These cracks, whether natural or man-made, all have the same effect. They erode Dubai's narrative of perfection. They remind everyone that behind the skyscrapers are very real-world problems. When combined with the financial burden and the sense of transience, these events become the last straw for many, making the choice to leave seem more logical than ever. We've peeled back the layers of Dubai's core paradox, a booming city that is silently pushing out the very middle class that keeps it running. We've seen how a once attractive financial equation has now collapsed under the weight of runaway rents and school fees. We understand the root cause comes from a strategic recalibration, turning Dubai into a playground for the super-rich, where ordinary workers feel left behind. We've witnessed the human stories of broken dreams, as families are forced to abandon the home they helped build. And finally, we recognize this is all built on a social foundation of structural transience, where there is no clear path to putting down permanent roots. The story of Dubai is a cautionary tale for other global cities. What happens when a city becomes too successful, too expensive, to the point that it no longer has room for the teachers, nurses, and engineers who are its very soul? Dubai may be building itself into a perfect economic machine, a glittering jewel that attracts the world's wealth. But the question we must leave open is this: is it becoming a perfect machine, but one without heart? And here is a question for you. If you have lived or are currently living in Dubai, does the financial math still work for you? What do you think is the future of the middle class in this city? Share your story and your thoughts in the comments below.